coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere on the windswept prairies of Oklahoma. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. This is Acceleration Radio, right here on KGRA. We have moved Thursday nights. Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Acceleration Radio again. Always good to be here. I was actually down in Peru last week with Tim Alberino and a bunch of 8 people on a camera crew. And it was very, very interesting. It was good to be down there and see what Tim is doing. They brought me in specifically to film about the DNA. And we went to the Paracas Museum and the Inca Museum. And it was great to see Tim. That's pretty much all I can tell you. But I'm here with a very interesting guest. His name is Al Mathews, and he actually became the center point, the focal of the movie UFOs Are Real in their own words. And when I went up there to interview Al, I had no, just love it getting texts while we're on the air here. I had no idea that Al would become the center point of the film. I mean, I knew something of his story, but when I was speaking to him, I realized that this was deep, really, really deep. And then in the editing process, it just became more and more and more Al's story. So we've had Al on since the movie came out, which is basically almost 2 years ago now, believe it or not. And it's a pleasure to have Al Mathews here with us in studio today. Al, welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, L.A. How are you?
I'm overworked and underpaid, but other than that, Al, it's all good.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. But make sure we pay our taxes. See, Kyle?
Yes.
So, Al, what's happening up in your neck of the woods?
All the usual, everything. The more and more you look into this stuff, I was on Vancouver Island, up north, the north tip of the island in Port Hardy, a place called Port Hardy. And it's full of Indian folks up there. So, of course, I do my little research. I went and talked to a few Indian folks up there talking about Bigfoot. This one gentleman I met who's lived there for 45 years, said they live in the cave systems up there, and it's not one or two, there's families of them. Then the following day, I talked to a gentleman at one of the ferries coming in from up the coast called a place called Bella Bella. I asked him right away, I said, you've lived up there for a while? He goes, yeah, over 30 years. I go, do you believe in Bigfoot? And he said, I had an encounter with my wife. We thought it was a bear until the thing stood up. And he goes, it scared the you-know-what out of us. And I mentioned to him, if these things, some of them can be mortal, some of them are supernatural, and that can shapeshift and disappear. And he said to me, he goes, well, if they catch you alone up there, you'll disappear. And wow. I said to him, do you mind me asking you what you do for a living? He goes, I'm a retired RCMP police officer.
Wow. So he knows.
He knows, and a lot of people know about this. I believe a lot of these RCMP know about it. I move a lot of RCMP. I talked to another gentleman that had 35 years of service. He was up in the Northwest Territories, Yukon, Northern Alberta, which is right up by the Northwest Territories. And he said he was seeing with his partner, he would call his friend in the other police cruiser to come and witness what he was seeing. And he said almost every single night you'd see lights in the sky. And I said, here, let me show you the way they were moving in the sky just starting. And he goes, obviously you've seen them too. And he goes, what are they? And I go, they're not aliens. These things are not aliens. They're everywhere. There's up to 4,000 or 5,000 sightings a month. And those are the ones people see. Right? But this guy was saying, yeah, they were seeing them every night, and they were told to report their location, the time, and they were filming these things, darting in the sky. Out here, they're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere up the coast around here. That's why you have a lot of missing people, too.
You know, I'm sure you've heard the book David Paulides when he talks about, missing people, and I mean, he's gone on the record basically stating that he will not go into a national forest without an armed guards all around him. And when you read some of the stories about the people who go missing, and by the way are never found, it's extremely harrowing. And look, I read a lot of stuff, and I'm 68 years old, and I've been around a little bit. But when I got a hold of David's book, I would read 3 or 4 stories, 2 or 3 stories. I put the book down for 2 or 3 days. and just get away with it. Just get away from it, because
It's
it's
too much.
very, very, very troubling. So it's amazing. You know, you and I both have a supernatural worldview. We believe in the God of the Bible. We believe in Jesus as our Messiah. And you came to faith several years ago, which pulled you out of the ongoing UFO phenomenon. But I want to
woke me up. It woke me up.
Okay, I want to ask you something. In the newest book, which you can see behind me, the UFO Disclosure book, there's something that I throw out to the audience, and I do this based upon research and people's testimonies like your own. These people are saying to us that they're abducted, they've been abducted all their lives, and they're Christians, and when they go on board, they say, in the name of Jesus, stop, and nothing stops. It continues. These entities just look at them. And so what I posit in the book is that with the 1.5 billion abortions since Roe v. Wade, and all those abortions like it, you can say, LA, you're crazy, but I'm not, folks. 1.5 billion abortions, those are Luciferian blood ritual sacrifices. That's what they are. The people who participate in them may not have a clue. It doesn't matter. That's what they're doing. Blood is spilled. There's no way to kill a baby in the mother's womb without blood coming out. And when that blood is out, it's collected and it charges the atmosphere. It charges the demonic. What do you say to that? What are your thoughts?
My take on that, LA, is history's repeating itself. Back in the day, these things showed up as gods. There were giants running around on the earth all over this planet, and there were sacrifices, slaughtering children all around these megalithic sites all around the world. Now, to this day, we have hybrids walking amongst us. They're not giants, they're hybrids now, coming out of spaceships that are supposedly aliens, which they're not. You and I know that. And then you have abortions. That's a modern-day form of sacrifice. To me, that's a modern-day form of sacrifice.
So,
that's what I believe.
So, do you think that in some way it's creating an atmosphere where people will evoke the name of Jesus and it does no good only because they're kind of under an iron dome, if you will, of satanic offerings, for lack of a better, I mean, let me just say this. This is conjecture, folks, on my part.
Right.
I mean, I'm throwing this out because I'm looking for answers. I'm not stating emphatically that this is what's going on, but there are people who are reporting that this is exactly what's going on. Number one, I find it extremely troubling. Number two, I have no answer for it except to point back to the abortion Holocaust. What say you?
My take on that, LA. Okay, from when I was a young kid, I was 12 or 13 years old, abducted, used for the breeding program. My whole life changed. People like Gary Bates goes out and says, the guy's looking for 5 minutes of fame. If you think being raped and kidnapped by these things is 5 minutes of fame, there's something wrong. But I would have to say... I want
to stop you right there. I want to stop you right there. When Gary Bates and the crew came out with their film, we gave it 2 thumbs up. You can go back and see the video of that on my YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. We gave it 2 thumbs up. We didn't criticize. We didn't, they have a completely different view than what I believe, and that's fine. We gave it 2 thumbs up in the spirit of Christian fellowship. But I have to say this, Gary, if you're listening, your view, unfortunately, is an extremely truncated view of the phenomenon. And to think that someone like Al is lying or looking for 5 minutes of fame, first of all, it's incredibly insulting. And frankly, as a Christian, I would think that you would know better. And again, you've got an axe to grind, and that axe prohibits you from actually looking at the phenomenon with like an open mind. So I love you, man, but let's sit down and talk instead of throw stones. Pick it up from there, Al.
I agree. Okay, my take now, LA, on being abducted and having the hauntings, and I mean, it's all coming from the same source.
Sure.
All this ended when I started realizing this was biblical, these entities are not aliens, and going through you, Jim Williamson, Gordy, and that, I started waking up to what this was. And it gave me clarity of what was going on. So my belief now is that I know what these things are, and they know that I know what they are, which stopped all this. That's what I believe. They don't waste their time with me because I know what these things are, and they cannot deceive me anymore, and they will not deceive me. And that's why I'm not being abducted. That's why I don't have hauntings anymore. I woke up to this stuff through you guys and dealt with it. And I didn't show fear. I dealt with it, and that got rid of it. You could go to church every day and not know the teachings of Jesus and the warnings, especially in our time. And if you don't know these things, I think bad things can happen. How many people are going to, how are they going to react if these things start showing up in huge ships and landing and coming out and looking angelic and glowing and whatever, right? And deceiving the masses? People will be deceived on a grand scale. I really believe that.
And this is what I call, and have called for almost 20 years now, the coming great deception, because
yes.
They're already, look, Tucker Carlson here in the States, about every 3 to 4 weeks, he has someone on his show. He's had Nick Pope on a couple of times and other people, Commander Fravor, the F-18 pilot, which we've shown the clip numerous times on this show, talking about the whole UFO phenomenon. And I remember when he first brought Commander Fravor on, you could see that Tucker was like, well, what's this really about? Obviously, his producer had prepped him. And so in his opening monologue and his introduction to bring on Commander Fravor, he said, UFOs used to be the stuff of conspiracy theories and tinfoil hat people. Maybe we should take a second look at this. And at the end of the 5-minute segment, because that's basically what he was, he asked Commander Fravor, what do you think these things are? And Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever they are not from this world. And I would agree with him, they are not from this world, but they're not extraterrestrial, they're interdimensional. And that's the paradigm that you and I both hold to. But yes. I say all that to get to the point and drill home the point that Tucker Carlson has been, this is disclosure, folks. This is not even soft disclosure, this is disclosure. And the fact that the American people don't wake up and look at this and begin to address it, the fact that the pastors aren't talking about it, I find incredibly alarming. And it makes one wonder, again, why aren't pastors talking about it? Your thoughts, Al?
I totally agree with that. The last 4 churches I went into, I walked out of 3 of them. I didn't like what I was hearing, seeing. I talked to one gentleman, the pastor, and he knew a lot of the stuff I was talking about. And he goes, boy, you've done your homework. And I said to him, I go, why aren't these pastors talking to their parishioners about this stuff? He goes, they don't want to go there because they don't know enough about it. So they don't talk about it. It's taboo. And I go, in the times we're living now, people need to know this stuff. Right. And they're going to be deceived. The masses are going to be deceived. And it doesn't make them bad people. They're not being told the truth. They're just not.
And again, I find that just incredibly alarming. I mean, I was invited to this one church, and I won't say where it was, and basically the elders, by the pastor, and the elders got together and uninvited me and basically didn't get rid of the pastor, but he stepped down from senior pastor into something else. And they can, give me all the verbiage that they want. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is they're afraid. And I wrote this guy and I said, your kids and your grandkids watch Ancient Aliens every week. They know about this stuff and they wonder. And the fact that you won't give them a Christian answer is another sign of the times, because we have a form of religion, but we deny its power. And I'm not going to tell you where it was or the name of the church. It doesn't even matter. That mindset just transfers throughout the entire body of Christ for the most part. But what's interesting, Al, is people come to these conferences that we have. Usually they're sold out, and they come from all over because they're hungry. People have questions. In fact, in the film, in their own words, at the very beginning of the film, I ask, you'll see me at all these different venues, and I ask the people, there's a camera behind me focused on the audience, and I say, how many of you have seen lights in the sky, orbs, had an encounter with an alien being, had sleep paralysis, seen objects like UFOs or triangles? Raise your hand. And upwards of 30 to 35% people sitting in that audience have had an encounter of some sort. And this, of course, is the dirty little secret that unfortunately the church really won't address. So people like yourself that's been going through all this, thank God for our mutual friend Gordy Tong, who knew about me, and you got a hold of Gordy, and you guys Skyped me, and we sent you up some literature, and a couple of weeks later, you gave your heart to Jesus, and things have changed since then. And that's the good news. And I want to make that really clear that when a person accepts the Lord, accepts Jesus, it's not all of a sudden all bad things stop happening. We're not saying that. But in a lot of cases, and in many cases, I would even say in most cases, abductions stop, because that name is more powerful than any other name. I think with some of the stuff that we're getting, Al, it's generational. That's what we have found, that the parents and sometimes the grandparents were taken. So now the children are, and there's some kind of pact that might have been made, 100 years ago, which has never legally been broken and dealt with, which gives these entities legal right to the people. That's conjecture. I'm just groping for answers like the next guy.
What gets me more than anything is, okay, those things happened to me, started happening in the early 70s as a young kid, and then it stopped for a while. But I've been watching this stuff on TV, on YouTube. There's a lot of hoaxers out there. But what gets me is the majority of people still do not have a clue what's going on with this stuff. And we've been watching this for how many years? And most people just laugh it off still. It makes my head spin. Well, I realize that people haven't had an encounter, but still, this stuff is out there and nobody really looks at it. They'd rather watch Dancing with the Stars than watch a documentary. There was a good one called Vanished with the gentleman you talked about, who I admire, is David Pilates. And it was a 2-hour documentary on the History Channel. It was awesome. It talked about haunted Indian land, cursed land. That's all down the coast, all the way from BC right down the coast of the States, all these national parks with people going missing. I'm hearing stories. I wanted to bring this up. It's finally time to bring it up, about voices. And people need to understand, if you tell somebody you're hearing voices right away, they think you're cuckoo.
Right.
Well, researching this more and more, I feel comfortable now. I watched a show called The Hunt for the Skinwalker, right, which is in Utah. Now, that one area where that farm is covers everything from cow mutilations, Sasquatch, portals, orbs, missing people, reptilians, graves, people seeing UFOs in the town, and people hearing voices when they're outside looking up at a ship. They hear a voice in their head. It's not a thought, it's a voice that they hear saying, get back in the house with your family where it's safe. You're not supposed to see this. Well, as soon as I saw that, and there were several people saying it, I felt it's time I could tell you about some of the voices I've heard, some good and some bad, and clear as day, by the way. The voices I heard were clear as you and I talking right now. And after that...
And let me just break in here, because I realize that to some people that's going to sound like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about here? Voice to skull. You can ask any occultist. This is very common. Voice to skull. There was a woman. I'll just tell a story, then I'll let you pick it up again. There was a woman that contacted me. She lived on the East Coast somewhere. I'll just keep that anonymous. Of course, no one will ever be able to find her. And she hooked into an EVP machine, okay, which enabled her to contact and have communion with these off-world entities, these disembodied spirits, as it were. And she started getting voice to skull, as long as she used the EVP machine. It got to the point now where she no longer needed the EVP machine, and the thing was inside of her. And that's when she called me and she said, LA, I wanted to leave and it won't. And I began to pray for this woman, and I got about maybe a minute or two, and there was resistance. And I felt the Spirit of a living God tell me, she doesn't want it out. You can't do anything. She doesn't want it out. And so I challenged her and I said, excuse me, I've been praying for you, but I have a suspicion that you don't want this thing to really leave. And she said, no, I don't. I said, well, there's nothing I can do for you. So, I just want to give you sort of a platform of credibility here, because many people have voice to skull, especially if they're dabbling in the occult, especially if they're being visited. That's just the way it works. So pick up the story, Al.
I've talked to, once again, a lot of Indian folks that are hearing voices in their house. That skinwalker people were hearing voices. My last encounter up in the Gatineau Hills, and this is nutty too, I looked at on YouTube, I checked Gatineau Hills UFO sightings. There's a log from 2019 down to the 30s. I'm scrolling down just waiting to see the years where I was having these encounters. 1994 and 1993. You know what it showed? In the area where I was taken, people seeing black triangles.
Wow.
That shocked me. That I know what happened to me. It wasn't an illusion.
Yeah, but now you've got a piece of the puzzle which validates the experience.
Yeah. But now that being said, after that last horrific encounter, I phoned my friend out in BC where I live now, and I said, I'm losing it. Something's going on here. It's supernatural. It's not good. It's pure evil. And I was taken in my car with 4 hours of missing time. And he goes, you've told me this for years now. I believe you. You're my friend. Get the hell out of there. After I got off the phone, I kid you not within a minute after I was off the phone, in my left ear, I heard the softest voice. I've heard it one other time. I'll explain that. In my ear, I heard, it is time to leave. It is time you must go. And it was whispered in my ear. I moved out of there in a few days. I was gone. I heard that voice one more time out here. And the strange thing was, I was driving my nice old 70 Firebird. I knew the brakes were bad on it. I was at a ball tournament. And I'm walking up to the car when I'm leaving. And when I pulled out the keys out of my pocket, I heard that same soft voice going, don't do it. Don't do it. And then immediately in my other ear, I heard this, do it. That's all I heard. Got in the car, drove the car for 5 minutes and got in a car accident.
Wow.
I'm dead serious.
There are people listening now, and it's amazing. And look, for those of you who are listening and have had a similar experience, shoot me an email, because I'll forward them to Al, and I'll also read them right here on Acceleration Radio or PPS Report. LA@lamarzulli.net. LA@lamarzulli.net. It's right there on the screen. So shoot me an email if you've had experiences like that, and not in a dream state, in a full waking state like this, right. And I'll pass those up to Al. Very, very interesting. So, Al, there's we talked about disclosure, where on Fox News and all this other stuff. I mean, there's almost a week doesn't go by without some UFO story on some website, major website, not like, coast to coast where they're there all the time, but some major website. And I just find that alarming. I just think we're ramping up. We're heading towards a period of climax. What say you?
I think they're doing it. I thought it would ramp up a little more once that fighter pilot was talking, but boy, are they doing it gradually. You got to understand it is how much they know about this stuff. How much do the military groups know about this? How much do certain government officials know about it? They must realize, and I remember, was it Bill Cooper saying after Roswell, there was another crash at Aztec, I think it was, a few months later. Yeah. They found human body parts on that ship. That sealed the deal to close this down. And now all you have is disinformation. You have the New Agers saying they're space brothers, which is absolutely, it's a shame. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, these people channel these things like the Nazis before the war. There was all that channeling going on, opening up the door to entities, Greys, Nordics, reptilians. I mean, if you look at history and really look at true history, it shows you this stuff is repeating itself. It's going on and on. I'm wondering how long it's going to take for disclosure. I still believe something's got to happen on a grand scale.
Well, look, Al. I mean, I'm right there with you. Something is restraining, and you could make a case, and I've made this case before. We go up, they come down. We go up, they show up. The restrainer being the Spirit of the living God and all the believers. This cat and mouse game has gone on for decades, and it begs the question. What are they waiting for crying out loud? It's almost like they can't do what they want to do. It's almost like it's fulfilling the biblical prophecies where it's just it's being held back. They're fully manifesting.
The falling away isn't complete.
Bingo.
I believe the falling away is not complete yet. That's what I believe. Well,
it's extremely interesting, but I got to take a hard break here, and I want to just talk about our sponsor, Jingos. www.buyjingos.com. www.buyjingos.com. Folks, this stuff really works. And I've got a testimony here. This is from Steve Herron, Johnson City, Tennessee. It's Steve Herron. I met you at the Burnsville, North Carolina conference. I will admit I am a procrastinator and had wanted to order some Jingos to try but kept putting it off. Last month, our boxer mixed dog, Macy, got sprayed by a skunk, the dreaded skunk. Here we go, folks. We did have to use another product to get the skunk smell off the day she got sprayed. So I ordered Jingos the next day in case Macy got sprayed again. Later, I scraped my elbow and went to bed that night, not covering my elbow with a bandage since the bleeding had stopped. Next morning, I saw blood stains on the ivory-colored sheets on our bed from where I slept. That Saturday, I washed the sheets and slightly sprayed the stains with Jingos. And after I washed the sheets, some of the blood stains were still there, but most of the stains were gone. The next time I washed our sheets, 2 weeks later, I sprayed the remaining stains more heavily with Jingos. I was skeptical to see if the Jingos would get out the remaining blood stains, since in the past I have noticed once a piece of cloth has been washed and dried, a stain won't come out. To my amazement, after I had washed the sheets, the old blood stains were completely gone. And he writes completely in caps. Yes, this product really does work. If I have a serious stain or Macy gets sprayed again, I will be using Jingos. Folks, they're our sponsor. We're proudly sponsored by Jingos. We're just tickled pink to have them on board here at Acceleration Radio. www.buyjingos.com. www.buyjingos.com. Order a bottle and send us your testimonies at la.marzulli.net. We'll see you on the other side of the break, folks.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, KGRA family, are you looking to show the world that you're a true believer? Well, shop now at thesaucerbrand.com. They've got something for the whole family. Jackets, hoodies, shirts, and hats, and so much more. And now's your last chance to use promo code KGRA for $10 off when you spend $50 or more at thesaucerbrand.com. Your new source for official and authentic ufology-inspired essentials made right here in the USA. And don't forget, use promo code KGRA at checkout and get $10 off when you spend $50 or more. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com. And for those of you going to Contact in the Desert and Alien Con this year, Saucer will land at CITD May 31st through June the 3rd, and look for them at The Alien Con June 21st through the 23rd.
By Jingos, it's amazingly fresh and clean out here in beautiful New Zealand. G'day, America. I'm Tarby, and I want to tell you about my new ultimate stain and odour remover, Jingos. My Jingos gunk gobblers will tackle stubborn organic stains and eliminate nasty stinking odours at the same time. Jingos effectively removes those little accidents like wine, coffee, dirt, blood, grass, even pet stains, and odours like fish, garlic, even skunk. Jingos is environmentally friendly, safe for use on fabrics, carpet, upholstery, and it works great as a laundry pre-soak on the worst pet or people accidents. Come on, America, what are you waiting for? Just go online and order your Jingos for $12.95 and get a 4-ounce travel pack free. Crikey, pay $19.95 and I'll double your order. That's 2 large Jingos and 2 travel packs for just $19.95. Blasted seagulls, where's my Jingos?
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Your official contact for the best alternative talk on the planet. KGRARadio.com.
Hey folks, thanks for keeping it right here on Acceleration Radio on KGRA on our new time slot, which is Thursday. My guest today is Al Mathews. He was taken many times. He became the centerpiece of our film. In their own words, UFOs are real. One of the more startling, let me do it again, 3, 2, 1. One of the most startling aspects of Al's testimony was his encounter with what can only be called a hybrid entity. Now, we've heard about these hybrids from numerous people. Not in the thousands, but certainly, more than one, maybe a half a dozen. People are very reluctant to come out with these stories sometimes, but Dr. Jacobs has been probing the depths of this in his book, Walking Amongst Us, and Dr. Jacobs believed that they are, in fact, walking amongst us. So when Al begins to talk about his encounter with a hybrid entity, and by the way, Wesley Sangiorgi, who did the CGI for the film, really brought those stories to life and did a masterful work with that. And it was just fantastic because as Al's talking, all of a sudden the images are there and we're seeing what he actually went through. Al, there are many people who have never heard that story. Can you just give us a thumbnail sketch before you move into something new?
Sure can. I'm thinking about that right now. That was 14 years after my last encounter back east in the Gatineaus. To think 14 years later, I moved out to here in Vancouver. I met this lady I did not know from a hole in the ground. I was doing an overseas move for her. She was coming from Kuwait. She was wearing these really weird glasses. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was like out of Star Trek. And I'm thinking, you're a very pretty lady. Why are you wearing glasses like that? But obviously, maybe she had an eye problem. I think it was a little more than an eye problem. So when I did meet her, my partner that was working with me that day, he had heard my stories, and I started chatting to her, making small talk. And I mentioned about Kuwait and the war being over and things getting back to normal as can be over there. And all of a sudden, she got all agitated and said, there's going to be another war. And I said, I don't know why I said it, but that's what I said. I go, don't you believe in a higher power? And she just looked at me and she goes, what do you mean now, UFOs? And I'm like, what? Why would you say that? And she goes, I know that you know. And I go, know what? She goes, I know that you've been taken many times by them, and so have I. We were supposed to meet. So you imagine that 14 years after those last encounters, meeting somebody out of the blue like this was pretty shocking. My friend didn't want anything to do with her. She was
smart
whispering.
Man.
Yeah, I know. But you got to understand, too, when you start hearing something like this out of the blue, it does get your attention to wonder why. How do you know this stuff? I don't know you. You don't know me, or I don't think you know me. And I ended up taking her number, meeting her at her girlfriend's place, and she was still wearing those weird glasses, and they had both been drinking, and Yeah, it's pretty shocking. She had this massive black fly in her wine glass. We're sitting out on the deck, and I said, "Oh, look, there's a big fly in your wine glass. I'll get some Kleenex and get it." And she just nodded her head. "No, I'll get it." Still wearing the glasses. She put her finger in the glass. The fly stuck to her finger. She brought it up to her mouth and then just inhaled the thing. And I'm just like, if you're hungry, I can make you a sandwich. Why would you do that? I know people laugh about that. It is funny. I didn't think a lot of it at the time. I thought, well, she'd be drinking. Some people do strange stuff. But that's when she took off her glasses and then got on top of me. And I had a girlfriend. I told her, "What are you doing? I have a girlfriend." And she went to kiss me. She took the glasses off. And her eyes, literally, when I pushed her back, only when I pushed her back, her eyes went, the whites went to a golden yellow with streaks, and her pupils shrunk. And I was seeing this, her face was a foot away from mine, and my reaction was just to grab her and get her the hell off me. And I dropped her to the ground and said, "What the heck was that?" And she just gave me the most evil laugh, and it wasn't human. The voice that came out of this girl's mouth was not human. I've heard it before in possessions, people with night terrors. It was identical. She was not human.
Yeah, that's just a chilling story. And folks, that entire testimony is in our film, In Their Own Words, UFOs Are Real. And Al was bold enough to come on and tell us that. And it was an honor that you would do that. So what's happening now? You're having, you go to this UFO meetup group that you go with Gordy, and you meet this woman, another woman. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, there is good news out of this. The UFO meetup group is now closed. It used to be a good meetup group. There were actual abductees. You talked to several of them with horrific encounters. I won't mention that gentleman's name that got raped by these things. He's seen hybrids all through his life. But they had another gentleman come in and just ruin the whole meetup group. It was just full of people that were looking for answers, but there were a lot of New Agers there that wouldn't listen to anyone. I profiled some of these people. They're like fans of Stephen Greer, which is immediately a telltale sign what they're thinking, because they seem to follow certain individuals like Wilcox, Ancient Aliens, Greer, and so on and so on. There's too many names to list. And it's frustrating when you say, well, let's sit down and look at this stuff, and I'm going to give you my evidence of what's going on, the patterns with this. It's pretty obvious when you look into it. It's spiritual. It's in the Bible. The warnings are in there. It's in the book of Enoch. If you look at the history of this world, it's all there. Nope, they're here to save us. They're space brothers. Yeah, that's why they just fly around. You have to get a hold of them by channeling them. But the bottom line, that group closed down. The last thing I heard about that group, there were 3 or 4 people going, and they were going up into the hills to meditate and fire lasers into the sky to welcome the Space Brothers. And now the group is totally closed down, so this guy cannot just see people anymore in that group. So that's good. But there was a lady I did meet there. Gordy got a hold of me after I talked to that other lady that had encounters and seen Jesus on a ship. So I thought I'd phone this lady up.
Let me stop you right there. When Al's talking about seeing Jesus on a ship, what do you mean by that? Is that the real Jesus or a counterfeit?
Oh, it's totally a counterfeit. And, you know, it's hard to explain to people. This lady said she's Roman Catholic. I'm not going to get into that. But she does believe in God. But I told her you can't mix all this other stuff. Yeah, you're maybe Indian and you're into certain things, and that's in their culture. I understand that. But biblically, none of this stuff mixes. You go with truth, you follow Jesus, you don't mix all these other things. It's like playing with tarot cards and then going to church or having a big glass of ayahuasca and then going to pray. I mean, none of that stuff works, and there's reasons
hopefully
for it.
All this
all
is
that
good.
stuff
I mean, I've got the audio.
The dark side.
I didn't
right.
know.
So anyway,
worst case
I'm trying to let this lady know. I go, okay, so what happened?
I've got the audio.
I did not mention bruising from the last lady.
But, let's pick
this
it up.
lady brought it up. It
Now,
was like
this lady,
talking to the
this Native
same
American
woman
lady at the meetup.
that I had talked to a few days earlier. I couldn't believe it. Well, this lady I did meet at the meetup group had the same encounters this other lady had. Abducted. She believes in God. She's Métis Indian. She's mixing all these things up, and I told her that's probably one of the main problems right there. She's seen Jesus on a ship holding a ball of light between his hands, assisting an injured gray. And I go, "You've got to be kidding." And she goes, no, that's what I saw. And she goes, "Oh, some of these graves were good, and some of them were weeping." And I go, "These little entities are soulless. How would they be weeping?" And I go, "Some people," and I shouldn't have said this, but sometimes I said, "Well, some people have seen Santa Claus on a UFO. Some people have seen Hitler. Some people have seen lost loved ones." I go, "This is all deception that these things do. They program this in your mind that you've seen this." Gary Bates is right with some of this stuff and not right with some other things that we know about. But I warned her, I said, "You've got to watch what you're dealing with. You're being deceived." Yeah. And
go ahead.
And I phoned you up that one day. After I had talked to her, it shows you why these things are called watchers. They were listening to our conversations. She said she saw a doppelganger of me on her roof looking in her window. And I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" First things first, I wouldn't do that. Secondly, I don't know where you live. And thirdly, I don't like heights. Why? I go, "I would never do that." She goes, "No, it was you." So these entities are trying to make me look like the bad guy, even though I'm warning her, trying to warn her. And then that happened. And that happened to another abductee I know very well. When I was warning him, he came to Jesus, he got a Bible and that, but he's gone off track again. He had a doppelganger of his wife in the house. So these things, they are so evil and sly. People need to watch it. They're soul collectors. They want your soul.
That's exactly what they are. They're soul collectors. They're soul collectors. And that should be chilling. I mean, I guess we're kind of like all the way down at the bottom of the totem pole. And yet, Jesus came and was one of us, fully God, fully man. And when we evoke his name, so what's interesting here is like we're on the bottom of the totem pole in the sense of spiritual beings. And yet Jesus came and was one of us, fully God, fully man. And when we evoke his name, when we come to a knowledge of him, things begin to change and we move in his authority. And that's what's incredible. And because he spoke everything into existence, we are literally teaming up with the God, the real one, by the way, of the universe. So Al, let me just ask you something. With everything happening in the Middle East, I've often posited that there would be a massive war in the Middle East. And the late David Flynn talked about this. It was what he also believed. And David Flynn was the guy who wrote the book Sidonia, and as well as others. Temple Outside of Time is another one he wrote. I never met him, but we Skyped and we talked on the phone. Not often, but maybe once a year, twice a year, something like that. I would call him up, we would trade notes. And he was just a great guy. And David posited that there would be a massive war in the Middle East. Maybe perhaps Ezekiel 38. Bill Salas was here, he'd say Psalm 83. The bottom line is, after this war, that's when the space brothers would come. That's when the UFOs would reveal themselves. Are you hearing anything, any scuttlebutt, any rumors from the other side, from people that are being taken? Are you hearing anything at all in regard to that?
I haven't heard much about that, but people are still being taken. There's lots of people missing. Interesting you mentioned your friend about the Middle East. My dad was a Navy guy. I guarantee you would have liked him. He would have liked you. He told me in his later years, this world is going to be in a major conflict, and it's going to be in the Middle East. He had no doubt. And that would be perfect timing for these things to show up with a falling away of truth and something on a catastrophic something happening. It would let these things in right away because they're out there waiting. They're waiting. So
again, something is restraining.
People, What's that?
I just believe that the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the living God, is literally restraining them in ways that we don't understand because they just can't do whatever they want to do. They just can't fully manifest. One thing we talked about in the beginning was Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and oftentimes when UFOs are in the area, Bigfoot sightings go way up. The two seem to be hand in hand. When you were on the ships, did you ever see anything like that?
Nothing. Actually, when I was on these ships, and I was also another time, I was in a cave system All I could see was cave walls, light emanating from outside this cave in this entrance. I didn't see lights or anything. All I saw, I was lying on a table. I couldn't move. I could only move my head to the left and to the right. On the left, I saw these two little creatures, and they looked like, the way I describe them, is like little marshmallow people. And they had black round eyes. They were totally white. They were about 3 feet tall, and their heads were turned like this, looking at me. I turned to the right and saw 2 more of them, and then that was it. They shut me off. I had woken up again. It was not a dream. I had woken up again, and they had shut me off.
They're in the film, in their own words, UFOs are real. There's an encounter that you talk about, which it was one of the more troubling ones. Not that, they're all troubling, basically.
They were all troubling.
Yeah, they're all troubling. But this is the one where you're driving home and you know you're going to be switched off. I want you to drill in to that familiar feeling of where you know it's going to happen. Walk us through the story and then tell us about the missing time and what happened afterwards.
It's hard to explain when you're just driving home. You've finished work. It's a nice day out, clear sky, everything's, you're like, I would say maybe 10, 15 minutes away from the cottage. Beautiful day, you can have a barbecue. The next thing I know is I'm passing the Tanaga exit, which is 10 to 15 minutes from the house, with no discernment, and immediately I know the feeling, because it's happened numerous times, just being slowly shut off. And by saying slowly, 4 to 5 seconds, think of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then nothing. And there's nothing I can do about it. Just being shut off. And the next thing I know, that's like 6 in the evening. I was off of work at 5:30. When I finally looked at my watch, it was like 10:15. And I'm being lowered in this beam of light, this massive, powerful white beam of light in my car, just vibrating. I had wet my pants. I could look out. It was only a little 300Z turbo Nissan, so it wasn't a big car. I could look out the left side of the door down, and I could see the treetops. I can put things in perspective. It's like driving your vehicle off the 50th floor of an apartment building in pitch black and looking down and seeing the trees. And I mean, I was just vibrating uncontrollably. I'm surprised I didn't have a heart attack. The car actually, and people, and I understand this, but it's supernatural. The car did start itself. You could see the lights go on, the dash lights, the headlights go on. You could hear the motor running. And the car was steering itself on these winding roads, and I'm just looking at it. Like, what the, And then all of a sudden, something came over me to calm me down, and I started steering the car, looking, where the heck am I? It's pitch black out. I saw a sign that was 120, I think it was 120K away from my place. It was a sign saying Maniwaki, 10 kilometers. And I looked at my watch. I had pulled to the side of the road again, looked at my watch, and I had like over 4 hours of missing time. Just gone. Absolutely. So I made it home, and then I fell into the fetal position because that encounter was the last major encounter. I had another really strange one, and I'm going to tell you this one. This is incredibly weird, too. And it shows that I had so many strange things happen. I would check myself to make sure I wasn't sleeping or dreaming.
Right.
I would pinch myself. I'm lying in bed, and all of a sudden I'm catapulted. That's the only way I can describe it. Catapulted up in bed in the upright position. And I'm like, whoa, what was that? And I didn't hear a voice. I had a thought in my head saying, open the curtain window. I turned around, looked at the alarm clock. It was 2:22. I know people have heard this before, but that's the time it was. I pinched my leg to make sure I was awake and then looked at the curtain. This sounds silly. I remember this as clear as day, looking at the curtain and talking to the curtain saying, no, I'm not opening up the curtain. Then I get that thought again, open the curtain. I opened the curtain, and all I can think of is seeing my head looking out that little window. There's a huge oak tree outside beside the property, and it's lit up, and there's these two humanoid beings, and I looked to the ground. They were about 2 feet off the ground, floating around the tree. Floating around the tree, they had white faces, black eyes, square jaws, dressed in these blue uniforms with a black belt and black boots. And every time they went around the tree, it's like a Ferris wheel. Their head would turn and look in the window at me.
Whoa.
And that's the last thing I remembered. I was scared beyond. That's the last thing I remembered. Everything was shut off. The next thing, LA, I'm dropped from about 5 feet onto my couch in the living room, vibrating again. I had wet my pants, shaking uncontrollably, with another 5 hours of missing time.
Wow, it's very, extremely disconcerting, very troubling.
Does that sound demonic?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and this is what people don't get. I mean, Al, if you were the only one who was reporting this, we'd all be kind of going,
Yeah,
but there are thousands upon thousands of people that have experienced it, if not in the millions. I mean, we don't know the numbers. Many people are too ashamed to come forward. They're too afraid to come forward. They think they'll be thought of as, crazy or whatever, and yet it's happening, and it's extremely alarming. What did these entities look like around the tree? How tall were they? Do you have any idea?
I would say they're probably about 5 feet tall. What I thought afterwards, they're probably grays, making me see humanoid beings. I don't know. But everything I've seen, LA, has had black eyes. But these things were scary. They looked pure evil. They had black hair. They looked identical to each other. Square jaws, very white complexion. I mean, why do you come and grab? Why don't they just knock on the door? Hi, we're the Space Brothers. We're here to help you out. And
they're not the Space Brothers, folks.
Yeah, no.
Al, we've got a couple of minutes here. Take us home. What would you say to someone who's been going through this or has been through this? And I mean, there's this one movie coming out. Actually, I was filming it actually, and I forget the name of it. It'll be out fairly soon as a trailer, and I'll try to find that and put it up here at the end of the show. But there's this one man that they interviewed, and this guy looks right at the camera and says, they're not all good, and he's terrified when he says it. So take us home, Al. Take us home.
My personal belief in researching this for a long time, if there were good ones, they would land. The people that say they're good are seen on the same ships. All this stuff is coming from the same source. As I said, hauntings, cryptoids, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, even these things people are seeing in lakes, like Ogopogo and Loch Ness Monster. There's now 361 lakes around the world where people are seeing these strange cryptoids. 361. So these things are manifesting all over the place. We're hearing Sasquatch sightings everywhere, goat man, dog man, all these hybrid creatures that you'd see on pyramids. What a coincidence. All this stuff is manifesting again. It really is. So, yeah, people need to wake up. I listen to a lot of the folks that put in their comments, and they're amazing that listen to you. 99% of them are absolutely awesome. They're bang on. I hope they're warning other people. We need to warn as many people and wake people up. Doesn't mean people are bad that don't know about it, but the ones that are out there deceiving the masses, I have no time for them. None. It's really hard to even listen to them talk,
Well, Al, I really appreciate you coming on the record. And folks, if you're really interested in gleaning more, In Their Own Words, UFOs Are Real is 1 hour and 37 minutes long. And you got to ask us, thank you, Al. And you have to ask yourself, what's stopping you from, picking up or going on the net, lamarzulli.net, and procuring your own copy. There's so much information there, and it will definitely bring you up to speed, lamarzulli.net. Al, thanks so much for being brave enough to come on the record, and we'll get back to you in a few months just to touch base and see what else is going on.
My pleasure, LA. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Al. Remember, folks, that's it for Acceleration Radio. We'll see you on the air or in the air. Let's hope it's in the air sooner than later, because this planet is shaken up, and it's a mess. It's a mess, and there's only one way to fix it, and that's the great fixer, and his name is Jesus. And if you think you know him but you don't know him, then you don't know him. And if you want to know him, shoot me an email, and I'll let you know how you can do that. la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. Thanks for watching. Cool. I'm L.A. Marzulli, the producer of the Watchmen Chronicles. I'm trying to get the word out about what I believe is the coming great deception. When, not if, the so-called extraterrestrials reveal themselves, what will you do? When this happens, it will change everything. I travel around the country speaking at conferences, and this led me to ask the audiences how many of those sitting there had actually seen a UFO, lights in the sky, had sleep paralysis, or an encounter with some sort of an entity. I was astonished as upwards of 30% of the people raised their hands. This led to the making of this film. Everyone who comes on the record has had a first-hand experience with the burgeoning UFO phenomena. So sit back and prepare to have your worldview rocked and perhaps your paradigm changed as you listen to their testimonies. In their own words, UFOs are real. Thanks for watching.
You have been listening to Acceleration Radio Live, and any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or program content without express written permission from the KGRA-DB or L.A. Marzulli himself is strictly prohibited. The Acceleration Radio Show with L.A. Marzulli, in direct cooperation with the internet website kgraradio.com. To find more on L.A., visit his website at lamarzulli.net.